well, these avian people are just a bird of another feather, aren't they? Um, Given the system model inside here, a mental mapping, they're getting to the argument of first they go to hummingbirds, which are migratory birds, of how that really works, whether it's magnetic or not. When the flower cycle is going to be one of those polarizations that if you put it in there would take a lot more magnetism out of it. Then also the graphing of specifically nowadays science from 20 years ago, if somebody decided to put an actual tracker on a hummingbird that actually says it's not just that they come back to the same region, right? They come back to the same specific region for breeding. Like, given the lifespan of a hummingbird, maybe some of that is still genetic learning. Like, parents are still there, migratory birds. They're still gonna fly with a goose of the same feather, right, or something like that. They fly there, and they're going to have a very large overset of what's going down there, of how close they are to the region. I mean, walking down on the ground and trying to figure it out, most of my mental mapping is going to give me a natural system inside here. I might tell you in the stone mill that I migrate when this system's jobs are dried up into another system until these ones stack up enough to actually do that, or some configuration of that permutation, given what kind of setup that is.
Welcome back.
Today
I'm very excited because
I'm just going to let you go, bud. In there, we're going to get to the nutcracker in an aviary. This is a pretty big violation of those standards of what those birds might do by hitting a pine tree, to their natural ability in the area to cover enough pine nuts. Early one, close nest in that area around the pine or in the pines to where they start to kick other people out, or where it gives the system to do what it needs to do, is actually 3,000 seeds or 30,000 seeds or 3 million seeds, I forget what it is, before they go and actually have enough to season through the winter. And that's the only thing that nutcracker bird's really going to be doing, right? It may have those ground jays, they're gonna take a grub or a peanut in that aviary, but they might have actually a much more diverse food choice out in the wild to what that little jay type is gonna do. Equally, like looking at our bird feeder, there are some seasonal birds that are all year round, but given the size and competition out there, not to mention predation, that adds to what actually goes into the thinking level of, again, their language and being able to mentally map. Still, again, today's technology, not just the brush, but how we have techniques for that brush, Happy Bush, as much as the ZBrush techniques that go with that I could tell you that pain centers or empathy centers of the brain are doing a thing. Now, to quantify that so that we can put a bird in MRI and you can get it hooked up would be a simple neural net configuration that actually says, so at the trigger, but very different speeds or different masses, if you will, to population stars or supermassive black hole to rocky body, red dwarfs, and other systems that kind of give you its first initial systems. So we're saying the thinking patterns of a Tweety bird and how they communicate. When do they communicate? Very frequently is a point, some IH at the bird and feeder or sitting on there. Certain cues, predatory chirps, right? That would be something very different, not only to them, but any significant others that they like for that configuration. Potentially their breeding pair, which is adjacent to this other group of people or systems that would get common to that mechanism, whether learned or natural to genetics, right? Tweet you make. So we covered the hummingbird bit and got the nutcracker bit, the jay bits, and the long migratory birds that high up in the upper jet stream there, the thinner oxygen places, I guess. Those are multi-variable calculations or multi-domains of those ways of thinking. You can almost say to that migratory boar pattern, it's still following with a family unit or a local tribe. Tribe just moving out because conditional foods are starting to shift out. You follow that, and even if though you didn't know the necessary direction, you could still get on the wing or close to the area on the outskirts. You might not get all the food as the main lot, but you would go with that pack around the outskirts of it. And carnivoristic behavioral models might go a little different in terms of the hunt, but if you were geese in that model, it would just put you in a high rate of potentially getting predated in that system, which may be semi-imperial, semi-mass to the amount of food that's in that region anyways. With things to consider. In the case of the kidnapping bee is what I'm getting into here. And again, this one's obviously apparently about a bumblebee. But again, I'm liking my model on the giant hornet, just taking one out of the honeybee's nest and leading to some colony collapse stuff of the other variations on this colony collapse thesis or psychological model. We're blurring a lot of lines here, and that I certainly like the way they're doing it, but it's kind of, again, more information and technique basis, and practicing it doesn't really get me much farther when I already have plenty enough. I got, who cares, Remington or a Winchester ammunition, right? I mean, it all goes down, right? Try to muscle through that, I guess.